Hey everyone, this is Oscar from Underdog, and today I'd like to talk to you about a tool which is often referred to as Grooveboxes and a new production workflow which I like to call printing. Let's talk about these two things. First of all, what is a Groovebox? Well, a Groovebox is a category of tools, not one tool. It's not one particular brand or one particular product. It's a category of tools, kind of like synthesizers are a category of tools. But what a Groovebox is it's a virtual instrument, like a synthesizer, except it doesn't rely on the MIDI that is sent from your DAW. What it has instead is an internal sequencer that generates synthesizer lines, drum patterns, or effect patterns all by itself, and it outputs that as audio. So you don't have to go into Ableton and program in the piano roll in Ableton the notes. What you can do in these virtual instruments is go into the virtual instrument and use the interface in there to create a groove or a pattern inside of the virtual instrument. There are certainly a lot of drum emulations that allow you to do this. Some synthesizers have internal step sequencers like this as well. But in particular today I want to come back to the software which is called Reason. Reason is actually a whole DAW in itself, but it also exists as a VST plugin inside of Ableton that can function as a Groovebox. And so when you try to combine the power of such a super powerful Groovebox plus the editing capabilities of something like Ableton, it opens up the second thing that I wanted to talk to you about today, which is a workflow called printing. And printing is the perfect workflow for those of you who have commitment issues. Do you ever find yourself programming something in MIDI and then going away doing something else and then coming back and tweaking it and going away and coming back and tweaking it and coming back and tweaking it and changing little parameters left and right all the time, going in circles, and for some magical reason your tracks never get finished? Yeah, that's the problem with commitment. One of the main antidotes to audio commitment issues is rendering things into audio or printing things into audio. And so what we're going to do is we're going to open up Ableton, we're going to load in the VST of Reason, and we're going to program this Groovebox to make a cool groove inside of it. And then we're going to use that as a printer. We're going to print good bits of audio from that then after that we're going to arrange in the arrangement timeline into a kind of a composition. I don't know yet what we're going to make, but I assume that in the editing I'm going to put that in as a soundtrack underneath what I'm saying right now. So that's what we're going to make today. It was super nice reading all the positive responses to the Reason video that I did a few weeks ago, and that's made it possible for this video to be sponsored by Reason as well. So thank you to Reason for supporting what I'm doing here on the channel. All right, let's get busy and get into it. Let's go. Before we go any further, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell icon, and come check out some of our educational resources on underdog.brussels. If you're enjoying this free weekly content, show me some love on Patreon as well. It helps ensure that I can make these free weekly videos for you. I recently launched a start to finish techno follow-along tutorial on my website, so go have a look at that if you're interested in industrial techno. And keep an eye on the channel for the new course that I'm about to launch, which is called Foundations of Electronic Music, which is for absolute beginners learning all the basics of electronic music. Now enough of that, let's get into Ableton. All right, let's get busy. I got this blank Ableton page, and what I know today is I want to be inspired by artists like Kettama and FJAAK. So I've got them in here ready to go just to refresh my brain on what the kind of sound color is that we're looking for. Now onto a MIDI track, I'm going to drag a Groovebox. Reason Studios, and there's two of them. There's the rack plugin and the rack plugin for effects. But we want the regular one, which is the sound generator, not the effects. Okay, here Reason is as a VST, and I've loaded in the redrum drum machine inside of it. And as you can see, I have no MIDI clips running into this thing, but when I hit play, you can see these little red dots moving left to right. There's an internal step sequencer in this plugin. So I don't have to send any kind of MIDI data or triggers from Ableton. I can just work completely inside here. But then what I'm going to do afterwards is I'm going to capture the audio and print it to audio. So imagine, just as a quick demonstration, here I put the default drum sound like this. Here, let me also program a clap. Awesome. Let me close it. You can now see that this audio is coming out of this track right here in Ableton. And what I'm going to want to do here, let's go into arrangement mode because I like that the most. And I call this the Reason Printer. And I'm going to delete this other MIDI track, and I'm going to call this the Reason Recorder. And what I'll do here is I'll set the routing from the second channel to the first channel. So it takes audio from the Reason printer. I hit record here, and then I hit record up here. And look at this. It's recording as audio. And I gotta just make sure that I have enough. Like for instance, 4 bars is a pretty good amount. 8 bars is even better. 16 bars is even better. And now basically, I can dump these sounds from my Reason project. I can just completely remove them because I don't need them anymore. They exist here as audio and I can do with them what I want. And I'm gonna trim this by selecting these 4 bars right here, doing Control E and deleting the end and the beginning. Now it's a perfect 8-bar loop, which I can copy paste into my arrangement and work with like this super smoothly. And yes, now of course, the downside is that I can't make any more changes to this drum. The drum and the clap are printed on top of each other and they're forever gonna be like this. And so why is this special? Well, it's fun because it allows me to go into Reason and find different loops that work with me, that speak to me emotionally, and then not to second guess myself. Because sometimes in Ableton, I get too intellectual about programming stuff. I load up a drum rack and I start to think, okay, I need to put a hi-hat there, a clap there, and then it sounds a little bit lame and I'm not really sure why. Well, in Reason is a lot less precise than Ableton in many ways. It doesn't give you good tools to really see, for instance, your signal level or do any analytics or worry about EQing stuff. Like none of that. Like completely just throw most of that overboard. In Reason, it's all about your gut feeling and stacking sounds on top of each other and allowing things to get messy. And that's the charm of Reason. It's not trying to be Ableton, it's trying to be its own thing entirely. And one of the other exciting things about this workflow is usually I recommend that people work on an 8-bar loop and try to get that 8-bar loop in as good a shape as they can before they even think about arrangement, because it's way simpler to make sure that your 8-bar loop is really polished before working on a longer arrangement. But this method, this printing method, instead, what it does is it encourages you to think narratively. Like, how is this sound going to loop, and then how is it going to change over the course of the song? Okay, so let's program a proper hi-hat line here. What I want is some jacking hi-hats. That means I want kind of 909-ish kind of samples. I want them to be swung. I want them to do choking with each other so that they cut each other off whenever the other one plays. And so all of these features are in here, you just have to know where to find them. So particularly here, channels 8 and 9 are made to be a choking group. So what you would do here is you would hit channel 8 and 9 exclusive, and these are the ones that you would use for your hi-hats. And what I'll do is, on the first one, I'll program an open hi-hat, and then on the second one, a closed hi-hat. That way the second one will choke off the first one, and we'll get that signature jacking style. Great. And let's then see how that chokes it. It stops. That immediately gives some vibe to it. Notice how you've got this shuffle button here. If you turn on the shuffle button, what this does is it enables the global shuffle amount. And what shuffle is basically just like swing in other DAWs. Every second 16 note is going to be shifted back just slightly. So a very straight groove would be like this, but then shuffled. You hear that closed hi-hat, how it's like, it's got some attitude now. Pretty good. Okay, for the lead, I'm going to try and use this sampler, and I'm going to put in some kind of old school stab from an old sample CD from the 90s or something. I'm going to experiment with that. And what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to program this on the weak beats, on the syncopated beats, to create a kind of a syncopated push-pull feeling. And I think what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and abuse the redrum sequencer for that. Watch me. So I'm going to put in an instrument. I'm going to put in the redrum drum computer. I'm going to reset it, reset device. Then I'm going to find the trigger out for one of these. I bet there's one. Yeah, the gate out. And I'm going to use the gate out for one of these sounds. There we go. To the input of the mimic, this sampler. And so now I can program. Oh yeah, look at that. Okay, that's awesome. And so now this Groovebox is going to play samples for me, and I can creatively warp and affect them. Let me do some exploration. Instant vibes. Out of curiosity, let's see if we can automate this stuff in Ableton. So here we go here. We hit automate and then we move this thing. Oh, look at that. Yes, we can in fact. So I could work in a loop, for instance, here. Loop this and go. That's pretty good. Okay, here we are. What we've got here is 4 instances of the Reason VST, one for all of our drums, one for our bass sound, one for our lead sound, and one for a pad sound. And then all of those are running out into all of these channels, which has 3 different layers for the drums, and then the 3 other musical instruments. Okay, so first I've got this techno kick. Already has some rumble on it, that's just due to the sample. Then I've got these jacking hi-hats with a lot of shuffle, swing, choking, a lot of things stacked on top of each other, quite messy, but with a good vibe. That's the most important thing. We're not going for accuracy here, we're going for vibe. Cool, some mid percussion. Then maybe this pad. Every 2 bars, just a little pad to hold down the background. Then this bass. Just turn down the pad so the bass can come through. And now the lead elements. Just some chords that play well up against the drum groove. Because it's about percussion and rhythm here, not about melody. I think that with these elements, we have enough to start printing. So let's start printing. I'm gonna record a couple of different versions of the kick. So I'll set myself a loop of 8 bars long, grab the kick and grab my drum printer. And I'm gonna hit record. And what I'll do is I'll give myself plenty of material on this kick recording in order to do an arrangement later. So I'm gonna do a couple of variations, like a couple of moments when the kick drum goes doo doo doo, you know, like in different patterns and stuff. So let me try that right now. So I start here and I go record. The first loop is going to be the most standard one, right? All right, done. Let's put that outside of the loop. Now, let's do another one, but with a different kick pattern. So we place this behind there. We're giving ourselves some ingredients and tools for composing later, right? Right now, we're just thinking about attitude and musicality. We're not worrying about being correct or whatever. Here, let's try some really weird stuff. Let's try some really weird stuff. Whoa. Let's say these 4 patterns are done. That's our kick drum ready to go. Let's grab a whole bunch of variations of the hi-hats. These are going to be the main hi-hat loop, you know? Just a ride cymbal is always a good way to add some splashy energy to a track. So you can see that by doing these variations, we're actually choosing to do it in audio instead of doing automation later. In a lot of Ableton compositions, you would be automating a lot of this stuff. But in this case, we're just going to print a whole bunch of variations to audio, and that's going to be it. Okay, so for now, let's say that this is perhaps enough. Now let's grab the bass. What I'll do with the bass is I want a couple of different energy levels of it and a couple of different filter settings, envelope settings, amplifier settings. So what I might do in general is I'm going to record a whole bunch of movements. So first 8 bars of it just being static, and then I'm just going to go nuts. I'm going to start moving slowly the parameters to explore some of the nuances of this sound so that then I can layer those in at the right moment in the track. So this is going to be one long take probably. Cool. If you've got a MIDI controller, mapping some of these parameters to a MIDI controller can be an even more fun and musical way to tweak this stuff, right? So now that we've done 8 bars, I'm going to start messing with it. Oh. Less is more often, right? In this kind of situation. You want this element to just have a bunch of different subtle variations to itself. Okay, let's stop there. Let's stop there. That's the reason bass. And then let's grab the lead as well. There we go. We're going to do the same. I'm going to start with the standard as I organized it in the loop. So just record it as is. And then I'm going to start making variations by moving things around. Also in the effects, I'm going to start adding in some crazy delays and stuff, because at some moment some magic will happen and I'll want to keep that moment. So here I go for the lead jam session. Oh, that's good. Remember that after a very intense effect, it's also good to come back to dry, because during a climax, that's a very nice transition to have as well. So here we go. We just have to stretch this out. And as you know, when Ableton records in a loop like this, when you just zoom out of the loop, all your audio content is right there, right? So sometimes people think that when you're recording over yourself into a loop, that you're erasing what you did before. That's not the case, right? There we go. Sweet little pad. In a very rhythmical track, be careful with pads because they tend to relax the atmosphere quite a bit. And if you want your energy to be high energy techno and kind of jacking house, then you got to be careful. All right, so here we go. We now have audio of everything. Let's turn off the monitoring of everything and start arranging with this. Here, let's start with these basic hi-hats. Let's move almost everything a little bit further and see what this feels like. That's a great groove. I like that. Let's duplicate time and bring in the kick. Nice. Yeah, that's cool. Let's bring it in over time. Yeah, I love that. That's great. Okay, now for the break, I want things to tighten up when the beat drops. Cool. Now we're just building the track, right? Just like this, like this, like this. So here for the transition, what I'm doing is a turnaround, which is just like dropping a couple of beats. And then I also do a little subversion where I drop the first beats. That's going to keep the audience guessing a little bit. I'll just do that. Yeah, that works. As long as you can keep listening to your arrangement and it's entertaining you, that's a good sign, right? Okay, now I'm getting a bit bored. Now we need something. Let's do a really committed break where we commit really hard to this crazy thing and go really far with this thing. So I'll commit really hard to this break here and then do a quick outro. All right, and there you have it. A pretty solid first draft of a track in the style of FJAAK or Kettama, using Reason as a groovebox and using the arrangement method of printing to get all my audio out there and start having fun focusing on the arrangement and the mixing and matching of elements that I've created with the Groovebox. I hope I've managed to edit this pretty long process down into a video that didn't ramble too much. Thanks again to Reason for sponsoring the video. Come say hi to the rest of the producer community on our Discord channel. Let me know if this process inspired you or helped you at all in the comments. And until next time, stay producing, be good to one another, and take care. Bye bye.